Η Άκρα, η πρωτεύουσα της Γκάνας, είναι μια πόλη superstar. Ανακηρύχθηκε στις αρχές του 2013 ως η πόλη με την ταχύτερη οικονομική ανάπτυξη και με τη μεγαλύτερη δυναμική σε ολόκληρη την Αφρική. Και η απόδειξη γι' αυτό είναι οι δεκάδες γερανοί που υψώνονται στον ορίζοντα, χτίζοντας νέα σύγχρονα κτίρια, προκειμένου να καλύψουν τη ζήτηση που υπάρχει σε γραφεία για τράπεζες, πολυεθνικές και ντόπιες εταιρείες. Στους δρόμους κυκλοφορούν ακριβά αυτοκίνητα. Αστραφτερά εμπορικά κέντρα εκπληρώνουν τα καταναλωτικά όνειρα των εύπορων κατοίκων της πρωτεύουσας. Η οικονομία της Γκάνας καλπάζει. Η χώρα βρίσκεται ανάμεσα στις ταχύτερα αναπτυσσόμενες οικονομίες του κόσμου και είναι πρώτη σε ρυθμό ανάπτυξης στην Αφρική. Για το Διεθνές Νομισματικό Ταμείο, η Γκάνα είναι μια ιστορία επιτυχίας.
The policies have been successful. The role of the IMF is really to advise on macro policies. So we do not construct bridges and develop infrastructure. But in terms of macro stability, clearly Ghana over the last few years have done quite well in terms of generating an environment of macroeconomic stability, which is necessary to have investment and growth and job creation.
Η σημερινή οικονομική επιτυχία της Γκάνας δεν θα μπορούσε να επιτευχθεί χωρίς τη βοήθεια των νέων δανείων που πήρε η χώρα. Η τελευταία δανειακή σύμβαση που υπέγραψε η Γκάνα με το Διεθνές Νομισματικό Ταμείο ήταν το 2009 για $602 εκατομμύρια.
At that time, the country experienced some fiscal slippages and a depletion of its international reserves, which was a combination of increased public spending, but also the side effect of the global financial crisis. So with the reduction of foreign exchange reserve at the central bank, the increase of the deficit, there was a need to provide some financing to weather the crisis and help the authorities restore macroeconomic balances.
Το χρέος της Γκάνας εκτινάχθηκε σε ιστορικά ύψη, φτάνοντας στα $14,6 δισεκατομμύρια.
We talk about credit facilities as if it doesn't have to be paid back, but our children, our grandchildren will have to pay this debt. And I think it's almost like selling the family silver. You can't get it back.
Finance-led economic management has been the Bible and the religion of African rulers and the IMF and so on and so forth. And every so-called growth is seen as a success, which therefore should feed that process even more. One of the fastest growing economies, not just in Africa, but in the world last year, was Ghana. Okay? One of the effects of that is that you would think that if an economy is growing, it has greater independence, it has greater space, it has greater liquidity and resources to invest in the things that it needs to transform its economy and transform the conditions of its people. I mean, that was what any logical thinking would be. However, in our case, that is not what has happened.
Κόμφορτ το πρωί, αφού κάνει τις δουλειές του σπιτιού, ετοιμάζει τα εγγόνια της για να τα στείλει στο σχολείο. Είναι δασκάλα στο δημοτικό σχολείο του Πάγκο, μιας μικρής αγροτικής κοινότητας στη βορειοανατολική Γκάνα. Αυτό είναι το δημοτικό σχολείο. Κάθε δέντρο και τάξη. Εδώ μαθαίνουν γράμματα 291 παιδιά.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll let you go away. I'll let you go away. Go.
Πολλά από αυτά πρέπει να περπατήσουν τουλάχιστον 5 χιλιόμετρα για να φτάσουν εδώ. Η δεύτερη παραγωγός χρυσού στην Αφρική και πέμπτη στον κόσμο αδυνατεί να παράσχει σε χιλιάδες παιδιά αίθουσες διδασκαλίας. Σε όλη την Γκάνα, 4.000 σχολεία δεν έχουν εγκαταστάσεις. Το μάθημα γίνεται όπως εδώ, κάτω από τα δέντρα.
We don't have structures. We are teaching under trees. And because of that, there is no any effective teaching and learning going on. Especially whenever it is threatening to rain, we have to run home. And when the trees are sharing the same problem, there is no, or there has not been effective teaching and learning because of the sun. When it is hot, the children cannot feel comfortable to learn, and the teacher cannot also feel comfortable to teach. No toilets, no play materials, and other infrastructure. So these are the problems we are facing in the school. And another problem is water problem. We don't have water. So we normally go about 3 kilometers or 4 kilometers for potable drinking water. And when it is brought to the school, there are no reasonable containers for us to store them. Because of poverty, the government will always complain and promise, but nothing has been done.
Οι περικοπές στο δημόσιο τομέα, που ήταν μία από τις προϋποθέσεις του Διεθνούς Νομισματικού Ταμείου για τη σύναψη της νέας Δανειακής Σύμβασης του 2009, έχουν πλήξει κέρια τον τομέα της δημόσιας εκπαίδευσης της Γκάνας. Και αυτό γιατί η κυβέρνηση, προκειμένου να πιάσει τους στόχους για μείωση του ελλείμματος, αποφάσισε να κόψει περίπου 31 εκατομμύρια ευρώ και από την εκπαίδευση. Έτσι, η ανέγερση νέων αιθουσών και εγκαταστάσεων θα πρέπει να περιμένει. Την ανυπαρξία του κράτους έρχονται να την καλύψουν οι κάτοικοι των κοινοτήτων που μαζεύουν χρήματα για να χτίσουν μόνοι τους, όπως μπορούν, σχολικές αίθουσες. Η κυρία Κόμφορτ πρωτοστάτησε σε αυτή την προσπάθεια, βάζοντας όλες τις οικονομίες.
I've decided to mobilize the PTA to help me with some money to put up a classroom. I've used my own money in addition to the scanty amount that was contributed by the community members to put up one classroom block.
Good health, all of you. Good health. Good health. Good health.
And now some of the children are learning in that one classroom block, and the other classes are sitting under trees.
Who can mention it? Yes, get up and tell us.
So whenever it is raining, even if it is threatening to rain, we dismiss the children to go back to their various homes in the rain. And when it is around February, March, there's no shade at all around. We all gather in one classroom, which we sweat a lot, and at times we fall sick.
Το πάγωμα των προσλήψεων στο δημόσιο, άλλος ένας όρος που έθεσε το Διεθνές Νομισματικό Ταμείο για τη Δανειακή Σύμβαση, είχε άμεση επίπτωση στην ποιότητα της εκπαίδευσης στην Γκάνα. Σύμφωνα με την αρμόδια υπηρεσία εκπαίδευσης της χώρας, για να καλυφθούν τα κενά σε διδακτικό προσωπικό μόνο στα δημοτικά σχολεία, χρειάζονται 33.185 δάσκαλοι, κάτι που δεν έχει καμία πιθανότητα να εγκριθεί. Εδώ στο βορρά της Γκάνας αντιστοιχεί ένας εκπαιδευμένος δάσκαλος όπως η Comfort για 175 μαθητές. Και πάλι οι κάτοικοι προσπαθούν μόνοι τους να κάνουν ό,τι μπορούν. Το ρόλο των δασκάλων που λείπουν τον αναλαμβάνουν οι γονείς των παιδιών ή εθελοντές.
We have malnutrition problems because of the status of the parents. They are very poor and they can't provide their children with nutritious food. We normally complain, and the reasons that are given are that the schools are many and the funds that are being sourced for education in Ghana is not enough to cover all the schools that are under trees. So they have started building some, but we, the unfortunate ones, have not yet gotten it. And they always promise to do it, but they have not yet come up to help us.
Ni shukur kuna yan karan la jala kai yisi chankula. Kuna te nte chang mana. Kuna te dre. Wonta na ma ndi nka sahana jina zonka jina kan. Lots of come no, I don't. Lots of come. Learn they back on no Latin. No current, do ma. No current, lots maka, so baraka jika naza, and tonoka, and tamshire, and the Michel Catan. And so you and the Latin share, being in a two car. Mbana danse kan batinye danse njira. Mbana Lebanese.
Citizens of the new state of Ghana gather for the celebration marking their Day of Freedom from colonialism. What was once the Gold Coast, a British colony, now becomes an independent Commonwealth. Vice President and Mrs. Nixon represent the United States at the three-day festivities. Native dances and games mark an event of historic importance since Ghana becomes the first Negro colony in Africa to gain its freedom.
Η Γκάνα από το 1957 που απέκτησε την ανεξαρτησία της από τους Άγγλους μέχρι σήμερα έχει σχέσεις αγάπης και μίσους με το Διεθνές Νομισματικό Ταμείο. Από το 1966 έχουν πάρει δάνεια 5 κυβερνήσεις που εναλλάσσονταν όπως εναλλάσσονταν τα πραξικοπήματα που γίνονταν στη χώρα. Πρώτος το προσέγγισε ο πρωτεργάτης της ανεξαρτησίας και πρώτος πρόεδρος της χώρας, Κουάμεν Κρούμα, το 1965. Μαρξιστικής θεώρησης, απέρριψε γρήγορα τους όρους του Ταμείου. Ανετράπη ένα χρόνο αργότερα.
But in many countries, the Red Chinese battle plan has failed.
In Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah, good friend and faithful ally of Mao Zedong, is today a fallen idol, a deposed ruler, a man without a country.
Η κυβέρνηση του Συμβουλίου Εθνικής Ελευθερίας που ανέλαβε αμέσως μετά υπέγραψε τη Δανειακή Σύμβαση με το Διεθνές Νομισματικό Ταμείο και αποδέχθηκε τους όρους. Η οικονομία ανέκαμψε θεαματικά, αλλά ταυτόχρονα αυξήθηκαν οι τιμές των προϊόντων. Τα έσοδα από τις εξαγωγές κακάο δεν απέφεραν τα αναμενόμενα και το 1971, μετά από σύσταση του Ταμείου, το νόμισμα υποτιμήθηκε κατά 46,8%, οι μισθοί πάγωσαν και οι φόροι αυξήθηκαν. Ένα χρόνο μετά, ο στρατηγός Ατσεαπόγκ ανέτρεπε την κυβέρνηση.
The government of General Acheampong unilaterally decided not to pay the debt that Ghana government owed to the IMF. It was a little over $90 million. And the general at the point took the position that it was something we couldn't pay. And we pushed for self-reliance. That was the message that he was giving to Ghana. And I think he made an impact. Unfortunately, the price oil hikes soon after that pushed us back into economic decline. And we ended up going back to the IMF for a loan that was after the coup that threw Acheampong out. It's an interesting paradigm. There seems to be an almost unholy link between coup d'etats in Ghana and economic downturns and then a falling back on the IMF as almost as a savior.
Throughout Africa in the 1970s, early 1980s, we had what you call IMF riots, which is the price of food going up and so on and so forth. And that kind of instability, yes, has been the backdrop to a lot of the coup d'etats and so on that have happened. Many more reasons, of course. But the critical reason has been that how to secure a growth model which unifies the majority or a good section of the ruling class, number one, which deflates the political expectation of the population, number two, because shock therapy is also to tell people that your political expectations about what you can get are not realistic. You can't get free education. You can't get public housing. You can't get a good pension from the public sector. You have to go out in the market and fight for yourself.
And if you look at our history, the stratagems have been the same. It's about devaluing the cedi. It's about fiscal restrictions. It's about restricting the government wage bill. It's about privatization or de-investing in government factories. These are the same things that they do time and again. And I do wonder whether if you keep doing the same thing over and over again and the country doesn't move out of poverty, if there isn't a need to rethink what you do.
Well, let me maybe qualify what you said and clarify. Actually, over the last decades, what we have seen in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa, is extremely encouraging in terms of macroeconomic policies. We can say that over the last decade, macro policies in most of sub-Saharan Africa has improved substantially, with an emphasis on macro stability and on generating what we call buffers.
Η γεωργία είναι ένας από τους πιο σημαντικούς παραγωγικούς τομείς της Γκάνας. Εδώ στο βορρά όμως είναι ο μοναδικός τρόπος επιβίωσης.
Τι ακπάρβλα, νανάνα τι ταμάλα, πάνε σακ, τι μπάνα μπουμπουρέλα. Σομίλε τι νιέ μπουμπουρ σάνα, κατάμλα μάχνη μπουμπουρέλα, σούταλε να είναι φάιν. Gome ni pati wala. Fresh kura adra bamiyal pemena.
Ba NGOs.
Ba ngam ko pena somte.
We ta government.
Gome ni tapena. You to tea. Yambo song si on song ya. Non betaw nyala sila. Le rome la ensim la tamba bi gengsi kura. Lampon ta wala epi e bogla bin.
Song la agrik dem inda song to bi la bambule song te bi nyam ne buglu to bugla me sar zamba katinye kala bule bahi ala la pani adam tipo be basane to ko ngam bange basane la awala kabana tete wala katete wala kabutete wom de la dida be on sane on da dirbe amma dono wala dida be ngesale ye dirbe la ba ko on sane wala katabe kom saha pom ju ma ber kom to ombe ma wala tenti yetu won katina da kurba wo wol ko la kati pati yetu wol ka kurba da wol ko si ya wol ko sitane kom la
The government cutbacks would mean, for example, in the case of agriculture, that all kinds of subsidies or research or extension services, they are all cut back. And all those things, everything becomes the market price. The small farmer cannot buy those things, they cannot produce, and so on and so forth.
Most of these farmers actually are really hampered in terms of livelihoods in the families. Some of them are not able to cater for their children in school because they do not generate enough revenue to support them, feed themselves, and to have extra to support themselves health-wise, and then to support their children in education.
Leng sim ga ku to ndala a hali balala to a wu 1 cedi be 2 cedis amma to nganda da sebe mamma nanano yim da abumbura ene ka sukulu bi pagana yiba yi arab bugus be open be baye o school fees ngala nganga se kam jangte bila ka ba abumbura la lana ta ake ka ku nganga de da abumbura bigo tika ligri to ma pala ti ma de dila to ma amma ti ma ligri to ma
timala to shiba por ko la si obo por ko la kala a bergo por ko la da bon ko mi yeto wa bom ani ni tiniti bon ko la wa nguri ne aka bo sa
tim ma ye ma gomme pe na so tama tim mar ko bul kala gomme tan kala am yele kata plengan ko ne yak ba yak wa an ko bul ko be sa ju kala la am ye anglais wala etim parlement be kalula tana ya ambam wa timani ko
Almost every government comes and says we are supporting agriculture, but the target are not the smallholder farmers that actually who need the support. In most cases, they are looking at the big time farmers who have already made it, but majority of our farmers are small scale farmers.
This is our rice processing groups. Somehow we are mixed with a group We process and come here to mill. After milling, we send it to the market. This is our local processing. We are so many, almost every woman in Tamale. It's still difficult. If only they come to our aid, it's because we have no good markets. It's good when you do this and go to the market. No market for you to sell it and then get your profit to come back to the house to feed your children, and then we don't have good markets. We are praying that the government will stop importing rice from abroad. When they stop importing rice, ours now will be in the good market for us.
According to WTO regulations, we cannot restrict the import of certain items to the country. But if there's that regulation that we could restrict the importation of these goods, our farmers can sell competitively. Then one other area with the market access is also that because the government is not subsidizing, our farmers produce at a higher cost. So they cannot compete with the imported goods which are produced at a lower cost in the outside countries. So competition on the common front, the farmers lose eventually. The government must support them so they can also compete favorably with the imported goods.
We had a good marketing because government came out with MIDA program. They came and bought from us. They distributed to schools and then distance.
Why do you think that the government stopped buying your products?
We don't know. It's because of the distance, our local processing here. We don't have the stoner machine here and then the blower so that it will blow it nicely, and then the processing to there is different from what we are doing. So the milling here is not so nice that we will get the good markets.
Couldn't the government provide you with some machinery?
They gave us, and then it is just the same as what we are using here.
And this has even made the youth who should have gone to farm directly get some money rather than to produce. They rather want to import, but they think it is cheaper. So the tariff and then the non-tariff regulations of the WTO is actually impacting negatively on agriculture in the developing countries, especially Ghana included.
Today, we initiated a holy war. To this end, the following measures are hereby taken. 1. The 1979 Third Republican Constitution of Ghana is suspended. A. The President, the Vice President, and all ministers and their deputies are dismissed from office. B. Parliament is dissolved. C. The Council of State is abolished. D. All political parties are proscribed.
Αυτός είναι ο υποσμηναγός Jerry John Rawlings, που μόλις έχει ανατρέψει την κυβέρνηση του Χιλαλιμάν. Μια κυβέρνηση που ο ίδιος είχε τοποθετήσει πάλι με πραξικόπημα λίγα χρόνια πριν. Η κακή πορεία της οικονομίας ήταν και πάλι μια από τις αιτίες. Ο Jerry John Rawlings το 1983 ζητά βοήθεια από το Διεθνές Νομισματικό Ταμείο, το οποίο επανέρχεται στην Γκάνα μετά από 11 χρόνια για να παραμείνει μέχρι τις μέρες μας. Στις δεκαετίες που θα ακολουθήσουν, οι οικονομικοί δείκτες ευημερούν. Ο μέσος όρος ετήσιας ανάπτυξης βρίσκεται στο 5%. Η ανεργία έχει μειωθεί. Το ίδιο και η φτώχεια, από το 51% το 1992 στο 29% το 2006. Και τα καλά νέα δεν σταματούν εδώ.
It's a bonanza. It could be short-lived. Nobody knows quite how much oil is out there.
We look at oil as a second opportunity being given to this country.
Well, it was back in 2007 that news reports showed that Ghana had made a world-class oil discovery. The true scope of the size of the field wasn't exactly known, but it was clear from that moment on that Ghana was soon to join the ranks of Africa's oil producers.
Dependence on raw materials or depends on natural resources per se does not bring about the transformation of economies. In spite of the huge gold reserves that we've not been able to attain the levels of economic transformation that we so much long for.
There's no point in having oil if your average Ghanaian can't have education. There's no point in having oil if Ghanaians can't go to hospitals and get good health care. There's no point in having oil if young mothers are going to be dying in large numbers from trying to have children.
Η Γκίφτη είναι 26 ετών. Είναι μία από τους 2 νοσοκόμους που εργάζονται σε αυτή την κλινική. Εδώ δεν εμφανίζεται συχνά γιατρός και η Γκίφτη με όσα ξέρει προσπαθεί να κάνει ό,τι μπορεί.
We are covering a population of 2,911 for 7 communities. That is our catchment area. We have one doctor who is at the district hospital, but for the community level, we don't have. It's only one MA who is at the sub-district level, but we don't have.
Ο κύριος Γιακούμπου είναι ο επαρχιακός διευθυντής υγείας που έχει διορίσει η κυβέρνηση της Γκάνας στην περιοχή. Είναι ενημερωμένος για τα προβλήματα.
Again, let me just digress a bit to tell you that we have a doctor population ratio. We have one doctor to over 161,000 population, right? One doctor taking care of over 161,000 people, obviously, is not the best. I mentioned that for doctors. Let me also mention that for nurses. It will also interest you to know that we have a nurse population of 1 nurse to over 2,500 population. I mean, again, that's a yawning gap. There's no way a single nurse can take care of more than 2,500 population. There's no way, adequately no.
Η Γκίφτη κάθε μέρα ταξιδεύει από χωριό σε χωριό για να επισκεφθεί ασθενείς και ετοιμόγενες γυναίκες που δεν έχουν τα μέσα να φτάσουν στην κλινική.
Yeah, we have motorbike. So we use the motorbikes to go. Sometimes when they are down, that means we cannot go there unless they come here. And this period, we realize that most people, they deliver at home.
Some of the communities, once the bus or the mummy truck leaves, it takes another 6 days, the market day, for them to get another car coming to the village. So if they should have any difficult labor case, a lot of the time they have to put them on bicycles. Can you imagine a woman in labor being put on a bicycle and jostled on the poor road? Or sometimes where they can afford it, they put them on tractor and carry them to the next level. We have very high maternal mortality in this region. And I can tell you, we're 40 weeks into this year. We have already recorded as many as 93 maternal deaths. Now, I know that elsewhere, one maternal death is a crisis. It's an emergency situation. But one region, 40 weeks into a year, we have recorded 93 maternal deaths. That is definitely unacceptable.
To me, I think if there's money, they should invest much on the health side, because if you are not healthy, I don't think our communities will be developed. If our BP apparatus is down today, we have only one. So if that one is down, that means the clients that will come within that period will not get that service unless we wait for them to bring us another one. Sometimes you can just attend to them without taking their vital signs. The building is part, and the building keep on coming down. I think it's because of the rain. Yeah, so you see, heat season, you can't enter the room. The heat is always too much. So, but we can't do otherwise. Well, they brought us here to be there. From the government.
Yes.
Well, we'll ask for potable water. Not for we, the nurses only, but for the community. There's a nearby community by us. In fact, they are drinking from a well. Potable water, then quarters to accommodate more staff so that they can improve the health service of the people.
Η ανάπτυξη, έτσι όπως αποτυπώνεται στους οικονομικούς δείκτες, δεν φαίνεται να φτάνει μέχρι τις δημόσιες κλινικές της Βόρειας Γκάνας. Ο επαρχιακός διευθυντής λέει πως η κυβέρνηση κάνει το καλύτερο δυνατόν και ως παράδειγμα αναφέρει το πρόγραμμα για δωρεάν κουνουπιέρες που εγγενίασε πρόσφατα.
The government of Ghana, for that matter, Ghana Health Service, actually has been waging a relentless war on malaria from several, standpoints. They realize that we need to actually fight the vector being the mosquito, the Anopheles mosquito. And so recently, in fact, just as recent as 2 weeks ago, the government of Ghana, for that matter, Ghana Health Service, sunk in bed nets. 50% of the population were given bed nets, hanged in their sleeping places. We recruited volunteers who went into every household, and then with a hammer and with nails and with ropes, because there were instances where communities tell you that, we don't have the nail to nail and hang the net. And it is true. Not that they were refusing, they just couldn't find the nail in the community. So the government of Ghana went out of their way, plus other support from other partners, to provide not only the bed net, but also the nails. And then there were instances where they said, we don't have the rope, so they provided a rope. And then hammers, they provide hammers, and then recruited the volunteers and paid them allowances to go around, nail and hang the bed nets in the sleeping places of people.
Για την άθλια εικόνα της υγείας, ο επαρχιακός διευθυντής ρίχνει τις ευθύνες στους ξένους. Λέει πως για όλα αυτά είναι οι μετανάστες χωρίς χαρτιά που μπαίνουν στη Βόρεια Γκάνα από τις γειτονικές χώρες.
There are a lot of people who are in here, sharing the little things that we have, and yet they are not indigenous, they are not nationals, and they haven't also gone to register, so we don't actually know their numbers. That's the risk. And that's how come you realize that our budget, the developmental budget that the government actually, churns out annually, will definitely fall short because they don't anticipate. And in fact, they don't actually know the real numbers of people illegal immigrants who are here and participating in our, local things that are provided for the, nationals. So that also is a problem.
Το 2011, ο ρυθμός ανάπτυξης της οικονομίας της Γκάνας έφτασε το 14,4%. Με κινητήριο δύναμη τα έσοδα από το χρυσό, το κακάο και το πετρέλαιο, η Γκάνα έγινε τουλάχιστον στους αριθμούς μια χώρα μεσαίου εισοδήματος της τάξης των $1.500, η ένατη χώρα της Αφρικής που κατακτά αυτή τη θέση. Οι πολιτικές του Διεθνούς Νομισματικού Ταμείου και οι μεταρρυθμίσεις της κυβέρνησης έπαιξαν σίγουρα το δικό τους ρόλο σε αυτήν την υψηλή επίδοση.
We have growth in mining in all sectors. We have growth in agricultural sector, but most importantly, we have growth in the service industry. Hospitals, education, hotel, tourism, and so there is a diversification of economic growth in Ghana.
Ωστόσο, όσο διωγγώθηκε η οικονομία, τόσο διωγγώθηκαν και οι ανισότητες. Τα ωφέλη της ανάπτυξης δεν έχουν γίνει αισθητά από τη συντριπτική πλειοψηφία του πληθυσμού, που μένει να παλεύει καθημερινά για την επιβίωσή του, καλούμενη ταυτόχρονα να αποπληρώνει τα διαδοχικά δάνεια που η κυβέρνηση έλαβε από το Διεθνές Νομισματικό Ταμείο. Την ευημερία την καρπώνονται λίγοι. Μια μικρή ελίτ που ζει πλουσιοπάροχα στις καλές συνοικίες της πρωτεύουσας, πίσω από φράκτες και σειρματοπλέγματα. Σύμφωνα με δημοσκόπηση της Gallup το 2012, το 53% του πληθυσμού, περίπου 12,7 εκατομμύρια άνθρωποι, δεν μπορούσαν να αντέξουν το κόστος των τροφίμων. Μόνο το 4% δήλωσε ότι ζει άνετα με το εισόδημά του.
It's clear that economic growth does not necessarily translate into poverty reduction, and to reduce poverty, we need to have the authorities invest in infrastructure, education, hospitals.
But at the same time, the IMF is telling the government that actually you have to cut back on your expenditure, which includes pay for public sector workers and so on and so forth, right?
Now, when you talk about the public sector wage bill, you're talking about direct services to the very poor communities. You're talking about teachers, you're talking about nurses, you're talking about police, so on and so forth.
So when the government is spending too much, it is crowding out the private sector, taking away from the private sector skilled people who prefer to work for the government rather than the private sector. But also the spending and the borrowing of the government is crowding out capital that could be directed to the private sector. So the reform will not happen overnight. It's a long-term process, and probably through not hiring new civil servant when people retire. These kind of things. It's not like they need to cut the workforce in the public sector immediately.
Yes.
In July 2009, when it made this agreement, this stabilization agreement and austerity agreement with the IMF, suddenly the nerves on the financial markets, on the money markets, calmed down. The collapse of the cedi, which is our local currency, slowed down. Same thing has happened since August this year as well. So in other words, you need the stamp of the IMF to be acceptable to international market players, even if it kills your own people. And already the burden is on the poor, is not on the rich, and they will bear more and more of that burden. And they have even less of a basis to stand up on their own, find employment, survive on their own because of the global rhythms, the waves that are battering them. The World Bank will release a report which says that economic reforms, neoliberal reforms in Africa is actually accelerating. 80% of all reforms since the global crisis, since 2005, since 2008, 80% of all more free market reforms in the world have been taking place in Africa. Okay? We have pensions which are being privatized as we speak. People are not looking at the example of what happened in Greece, and we have all those things, those elements, which will even intensify the process of imbalance. It will intensify the process of shock. It will intensify the vulnerability and also exacerbate the inequality that already exists. So even when we grow, most of us, we hurt, and when we don't grow, we hurt even more.
Because still in our communities, women are going hungry. In the lean season, women eat last and least. And when it gets really bad, they may eat once every day, once every 2 days, so that their children can eat. And these, I think, should be the real indicators of what a middle-income economy is. Is any child in Ghana going to bed hungry? That should be an indicator. Is any woman dying in childbirth? Avoidably, that should be an indicator. Are women able to access the health services, the education services, the credit facilities, the markets? That should be the real indicator of what growth is.